AEW is now just part of the wrestling landscape. I know if you were there for its birth, this is terrifying, but it's just the way it is. Let's go and dig the grave. It means over the last few years there have been some ideas that made it to a creative meeting but were then tossed away. So I am Simon Miller, and today we figure out whether this was the right or wrong decision. So sit down and let's go. Number 10, repeating the WWE love triangle. September 2023 is when Dolph Ziggler's 19-year run ended with WWE. Now that is an amazing feat, and more power to that guy, but also, sure, WWE should have done more with him. Both these statements are true. Since then, the now Nick Nemeth has been doing great work in TNA, but the rumor has always been that maybe there was an AEW idea for him, the dreaded love triangle. It would have been a retread of what has come before too, because according to the chatter, Tony Khan thought as he already had CJ Perry and Miro, why not give it a go and see? You may remember this was done on Raw in 2015 alongside Summer Rae. I don't know, man. Fans didn't like it a decade ago. I'm not sure they'd want it again all this time later. Maybe as a wink wink nudge nudge, but that takes about a week. I suppose the concept could have been raised, but do not forget, this never made it to TV. And I'm sure there's a reason for it. Number 9, Team Extreme under one roof. March 2020. The pandemic was going on, so we were all sad when Matt Hardy tried to cheer us up. He debuted in AEW with his broken gimmick, and if only there had been people in the stands, this would have worked so much better. 2 years later, Jeff Hardy had a very strange WWE exit, but it meant in 2023 a new question was raised. Should we reunite Team Extreme in AEW? It's all rumors again, but All Elite Wrestling was said to be thinking about reaching out to Lita, and yeah, do not underestimate this. People loved these three back in the day. That is proper nostalgia. Lita has mentioned this in interviews too, and really her decision came down to the fact that she'd rather sign with WWE. So she did. Good for her. What we must keep in mind is that Tony Khan is a huge wrestling fan, so I bet even the thought of it was just exciting. And I like that too. That's how we would be if we were in charge. I could just run amok with my own dream matches and then watch the internet get mad. My word, it would be wonderful. Number 8, the TLC Brothers. So this was at least pitched, I think, and I get it. But Matt Hardy one day realized that he, Brother Jeff, Adam Copeland, and Christian Cage were in the same promotion. Why not team up based on their shared history? Why not indeed? Hardy was happy to talk about this on his podcast and even got into the story. Their classic TLC wars would bond them, and then when the younger crew refused to respect them, they'd whoop some ass. I don't hate it. I guess it would be like an NWO main event mafia angle, but do not do what we did there. The veterans always have to lose in the end. Otherwise, what's the point? I suppose Tony Khan had other ideas because we never did see this. Although actually, I think it likely would have been fun for a while. Know of any other AEW plans that almost came to fruition but ultimately didn't? Make sure you let us know in the comments below before you like the video, share the video, and subscribe. Number 7, Jeff Hardy's Demon. So we know this from TNA. Jeff Hardy likes playing characters. Willow is one people will be familiar with, and as Hardy talked about on Talk is Jericho, he wanted this guy to debut in AEW. He had thought about this too, as Jeff wanted to play it as if Willow was his inner demon, which explained why he had made so many mistakes in his personal life. By his own admission, it would be similar to what Bray Wyatt had done with The Fiend, but this feels a little bit too close to the bone, I suppose. And no, it didn't happen. I think there's a chance it could have been greenlit, but as we know, sadly, Hardy did actually get into more trouble after joining AEW, so yeah, maybe this wasn't the best plan. Sometimes reality is way more important. Number 6, Bray Wyatt jumped ship. So this one feels very real. After Bray Wyatt was surprisingly let go from WWE, everybody wanted him, because of course they did. All the usual sources then confirmed that AEW and Wyatt were talking, before eventually he just returned to WWE. It's not like this was baloney, however. Apparently the only reason All Elite Wrestling and Bray didn't shake hands was money. They couldn't agree on a salary. I can't even imagine what that would have looked like, and it's fair to say Vince McMahon didn't get Wyatt at all. The amount of times he took his ideas and ruined them is borderline ridiculous. Tony Khan does seem to be a dude who would have let Bray go nuts with his creativity, but of course now we shall never know. Wyatt tragically passed away in 2023, and that still doesn't feel real. It was a horrible, horrible situation. Number 5, the Kurt Angle Classic. So Kurt Angle has sort of spoken about this, so I guess it's true. Tony Khan once offered him 2 different contracts. One was to wrestle, and the other was to be an on-screen personality. Now, Kurt said no to these because he needed a break, but also due to his own high standard. He didn't think he could compete at the level of the rest of the AEW roster, and he didn't want to see that. We kind of got a feel for this too in WWE, although there were a few reasons for that. And honestly, Kurt should have been treated better all around, and maybe All Elite Wrestling would have done that when it came to his retirement. I do get what he means, however. If you did book Angle versus Kenny Omega and it wasn't the best thing we'd ever seen, there would have been a group of fans that would have been disappointed. Well, that's totally unfair, but it is how brains work. And also, Angle has been through the ringer over the last few years. I just hope he finds peace and happiness. Number 4, Cody Rhodes' super heel group. Let us go back to the pinnacle. It was MJF, Wardlow, FTR, and Shawn Spears that were born into the world in March 2021. Then by June, it was done. That was fast. Kinda sums it up, but this wasn't even a plan at one point, and in fact, Dax Harwood thought he should be in a group with Cody Rhodes. Both he and Cash Wheeler envisioned something with them, Rhodes and Brock Anderson, which would of course mean their managers would have been Arn and Tully. You can see the idea here. The big shift to make this work would have been Cody turning heel. That's basically why we didn't get it. We all know this, that is not what Rhodes wanted to do. So the American Nightmare said no, and the pinnacle was the plan B. You can't argue Cody made an error here. I mean, look what he was doing a year or so later. Maybe he doesn't get that kind of traction if he does go bad guy. I do think this would have been fun though, and all things considered, would have been way better than the pinnacle. So I don't really understand what we were doing there. And also, I want to be that guy. But the pinnacle is a really dumb name for a team. Number 3, Ric Flair turns on Sting. So this would have been awful. Just wasn't the time. But after Ric Flair was brought into AEW for Sting's retirement, which was just pure nostalgia, the Nature Boy had an idea. Why doesn't he turn on Sting one last time? I mean, he had made a career out of that. It would have led to the Revolution 2024 match and Flair being trapped in the Scorpion Deathlock, and man, I don't think anybody needs to see that. It would have been totally unnecessary. Tony Khan thankfully agreed, and this didn't go anywhere, which was the right move, because the whole night was meant to be about the icon, and the booking was just perfect. Not only was it the ultimate way to go out, but when you look back over 2024, well, it may have been the highlight of the damn year. Number 2, Goldberg is All Elite. So Bill Goldberg and Tony Khan definitely had talks. Just go and follow the interview trail. You can put it all together. Khan was also very nice about Bill, which is why it was weird when in a different interview, Goldberg described AEW as too cheesy. I still don't really know what that means. I would assume they wouldn't match his asking price, and therefore he felt slighted. It would have been good for business because Bill spikes TV ratings, but I'm also not sure how this would have worked. We all know Goldberg is at his best when he smashes people, and man, the AEW fan base would not have liked that, especially if it was one of their young guns. There would be outrage. So this was soon ended, and I think it is another positive step. Bill appeared at WWE's Bad Blood show anyway, so I guess he's made his choice. We've talked about this before. If you are going to hire people, make sure they want to be there. I mean, that really is half the battle. Number 1, CM Punk versus the Elite in Blood and Guts. Who knows if this would have been what we all wanted, because we basically fantasy booked it to death. When we did get to Blood and Guts 2023 though, CM Punk had an idea, or so it was said. Brawl Out was well known across the wrestling globe, so let him be the last guy on Team BCC so we could pay this off. We could all make some darn money. For whatever reason, the Elite didn't feel the same, and I suppose they just wanted to leave it be. You can argue whether that's the right or the wrong choice, but always remember they're human beings at the end of the day. Maybe they were really broken by all this. It was pretty bad. It definitely would have sparked so much interest for obvious reasons, but now we will never know. Given things that CM Punk has said in interviews though, I think he was more than happy to do business. But you can only do business if the other people want to do business, and I don't think the Elite wanted to do business. #business, the end.